The smartest way for you to invest in soft power within a country is for you not to actually show your agenda and bias for a very long time. Just make sure that you are there. You have a media with a good, decent amount of audience so that you could eventually, you might even not know what you're going to be using it for. Just make sure that you have a presence so that someday, if you need it, you could basically use it as leverage to have some influence. That's how you use soft power, right? And Iran International is that when it comes to Saudi Arabia, is just like, just make sure it's there. So when we need it, we have it. But the problem is that the Saudis weren't actually very smart with Iran International because they, from the very beginning, some of their biases were showing, including, this might be interesting to you, Danny, advertising the MEK, right? So Iran International years ago would just constantly bring the MEK people as experts to market them and advertise them. And they even broadcasted one of the biggest ceremonies of the MEK, like just covering it all the time without criticizing it, just supporting it, advertising it. It was insane. Iranian people used to hate Iran International because they would advertise the MEK, they would advertise Kurdish separatist groups, they would advertise the communists, they would advertise every single person that we hate. And even today, they constantly are trying to introduce alternative leaders to Princess of Pahlavi by giving them a platform, even though their opinion is not needed or they're not relevant, right? They keep bringing them on as a way to kind of promote them. The thing is that Iran International cannot be trusted, but should also be used because they have a lot of influence, they have a big audience. We have no other alternative to Iran International that has this reach. And at the end of the day, right now, they're doing more good than harm because every time they try to do this bullshit, the Iranian people are quick to recognize it and call it off and dismiss it, right? So the Iranian people are very aware and they're so politically savvy that any types of this bullshit that is being pulled by Iran International, they're like, yep, we see what you're doing. And also, another reason why we still need to use Iran International because of the wide reach that they have is because Iran International's main priority is to be the source of news. And you cannot keep saying things that the Iranian people don't want to hear and expect people to keep watching your news, right? So, for this to work, they need to appeal to what the Iranian people want. They have to also do a lot of reporting that we want, right? And they also at least have to make sure that they're a credible source of news, or else they will completely be dismissed. They have to cover the protests accurately. They have to show that Iranian people really want Pahlavi because it's so obvious that if they don't do that, nobody would take them seriously. That's why we have to be skeptical, we have to be mindful, but we also have to use them. And Prince Pahlavi uses them as a way to, for example, advertise the QR code for people who are what is it called? Recession. What is it called when people leave the regime? Defections. When
Effect.
there's defections from the regime, he had the QR code for people to join his side, and basically the platform that he created, he used Iran International to advertise that, right? And honestly, we don't have anything better. So a lot of people think Manitou is better. Manitou is more pro Pahlavi. However, Manitou is not doesn't have as wide of a reach as Iran International, and they do sometimes do things that Iranian people don't like as well. So, for example, Manitou recently came out and said like we should stop having the American and Israeli flags in our protest because United States and Israel didn't come to our help. And Iranian people are like, doesn't that contradict the command of a princess? Like Princess of Pahlavi is telling us to continue, appealing to the Americans and Israelis to come help us, and now you're telling us not to bring American and Israeli flags. That's a contradiction to what Princess of Pahlavi wants. And another thing that Manitou done recently that a lot of people right like this happened just yesterday, by the way. This is new news, right? So Manitou just came up with a brilliant, sarcastically, I'm saying, idea for Iranians inside Iran who support this revolution to carry black ribbons with them as a way to mourn the fallen, which is basically a way to mark themselves to the regime on who's with the revolution. So a lot of people are, and they're not backing off apparently. A lot of people are basically calling them out. They're like, "Are you fucking retarded? Like you want
They're
Iranians
promoting
to
this
mark
inside
themselves?
Iran.
What? What?
They're promoting this inside Iran.
Yes, yes, they're saying Iranians inside Iran come out with black ribbons to support this revolution. Like basically, just tell on yourselves to the regime. A lot of people don't like that because they want this black ribbons as a way to mourn all the people who have died, and a lot of Iranians are saying like this is not the time of mourning. We're more angry than we are sad, and this doesn't match the messaging that is coming from the revolution, that this is not the time for mourning. So a lot of people are like basically calling out Manoto. So the two other medias that people mistrust more than anyone is BBC Persian, which Iranians hate with passion. They call it Ayatollah BBC. And another one is Voice of America, Sadaya America, because they for some reason I don't know why Trump hasn't stopped Voice of America, because it's basically all the worst people, all the is run by leftists and reformers and anti-Pahlavi people. And they just recently had a new guy called Mahdi, which is a Kurdish separatist, and he hates Pahlavi with passion. And he basically has made the mention of the word Pahlavi on all of their banned the mention of the word Pahlavi on all of their news. So Voice of America Persian has banned even the mention of the word Pahlavi in any of their news. And American taxpayers are paying for it. American taxpayers are paying for the Persian branch of Voice of America, which has banned the mention of the word Pahlavi because it's now being run by a Kurdish separatist guy called Ali Jawamiri. This is why we have no alternative other than Iran International. Anyways,
I, can I just quickly ask, where does Manito's bias come from? Like, who are they funded by?
so I don't know how originally Manitoba was being funded, but eventually they ran out of money and they cut a lot of their programs, and now they're only funded by support of the users. That's why a lot of their news programming has shut down, and they have turned into like a podcast commentary show. They used to have, when they had a different source of funding, they used to have the best documentaries, and a lot of people love their documentaries, like regarding pre-Islamic Republic documentaries regarding the Shah's time. You love those. Now they're all like, a lot of them is now for only YouTube members only, because they're running out of money. So now they have turned into a model for people to donate, pay. So that's now their source of funding. But they used to have more sort of like they were almost completely shut down at some point because they would run out of funding. Yeah. But this is why only BBC, Voice of America, and Iran International continue to live, because BBC is funded by the British taxpayer, Voice of America is funded by the American taxpayer, and Iran International is funded by the Saudis. So Jeffrey wanted to add to that.
Yeah, to your point. So you're not wrong for them to be cautious about what they're being told. Think about what you said, and you're right on the money. It very much smacks of what the Soviet Union did after the Second World War when they set up honey traps to kill both in the interim year wars and post Second World War, setting up honey traps and controlled opposition to flesh out what the opposition would be in Ukraine and Poland, and it resulted in tens of thousands of anti-Bolshevik, anti-Soviet resistors being killed. So, there's a book when I'm done, I'll go and find it if I can in the back, that outlines how, and actually uses the Mullah regime as the case study, how the Mullah regime will use institutions that have been institutionally captured by leftists because of that marriage of convenience, red, black, or green, red, green alliance kind of stuff, to push disinformation, even unbeknownst. Many of them don't even know they're being used that way. They don't care, right? They just care about their career or regurgitating what they've been conditioned to think. It still has operational impact to the brave Iranian protesters, though. right? It takes a long time to clean those guys out because they've been capturing those institutions for 70 years, which is also why it's really important that you and Goldie and Tusi and the rest of you do all the things you do, Armin, because you're giving an alternative, you know, source of news, yes, that is not institutionally captured by ideologies that are either friendly to and or accommodating to the Mullah regime. And you're right to be concerned, man. I'm glad that you guys. Please tell me you told the other people in the diaspora not to do that, because the Mullah regime would absolutely use that to flesh them out and kill them. I believe that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to tell them. They came to me in huge numbers telling me to say this on the show, right? So they were basically they were like on the Persian show that I had today, so many so the way I do the Persian show right now is I just go to the Persian Discord server and I just share that and I speak and then everybody from Iranians inside and outside of Iran come up and speak. So even before I got the chance to say anything about that on the show, there were people who were like, it was like this, like people raised their hand to speak, and they wanted to talk about that and call out Manitou regarding that. And again, apparently they're not backing down, which is making them lose credibility fast. Yeah.
So I'm next, and I want to shift a little
Yay.
bit. Mike, I got you.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Thanks.
I want to shift for a second to, oh, a huge window. So I saw a video today of Keir Starmer talking about Peter Mandelson being on the Epstein list. And to put it very brief to anyone who didn't see it, it was basically, how could we know this guy was on the list? And it was like, well, did you check? And it was like, yeah, well, he was involved, but we asked him and he said he wasn't doing anything shady. And then they're like, okay, show us like show it, like, give us the info. And then his response was basically, no, national security. Can somebody who knows about national security give me what nobody is asking for somebody in the parliament's address and phone number. Okay, redact that BS. What about national security could it be that they can't give this information up?
Wait, so is he the UK ambassador to the US, this guy?
I
Who is he?
believe so. I believe so.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So national security. I think this is a Jeffrey question. Jeffrey question. How could this be a national security issue?
I understand from like a justice standpoint, when you're doing investigations, you don't want to reveal information that can
Yeah.
compromise your investigation. That's one thing, and I'm totally setting that to the side.
Mhm.
But national security, like, we're not asking for the red phone number. We're not asking for codes. We don't want somebody's retinal scan. Like, what's the information?
Mm.
Jeffrey might be snacking right now, I have a feeling, or making tea. Okay, we
Mm.
can move
So
on.
wait, what do we know about his what do we know so far regarding him and the Epstein file? Do we have any information?
Well, my takeaway was the photo of him in his panties in
Oh, that one. That was him. Okay.
next
Mhm.
to a woman in a robe looking at something. But he was
Right.
definitely in his dad underwear.
So here, let me do a Steelman, okay? So if you release, maybe like what they could say is that if they release more information, you could basically put two and two together and figure out the people who are involved, and then use that to put pressure on him or other people, and then use that to basically take state secret information that you're not supposed to have. By knowing the people who are involved, then you will have leverage over them. By having leverage over them, then you could use that as a way to basically extract information from key people within the government.
So, like, I get that as a I get that that's a thing. But if we were to place that as the national security threat, you can apply that to anything in the world, to any
Right.
person, and we never have to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, yeah.
Also, what
True.
could happen is expose those people, and then they get out of the government if they need to. And
Right.
then secrets what? Because when it's all brought out to the
Oh
light,
yeah. Yeah. So just expose them completely, embarrass everything out there so that there's nothing else to use as leverage.
what are you exactly? I don't know that it can get worse. No offense to anybody's panty choices, but they're like the hardcore, like dad white panties. And so, like, is it going to get worse than that? The whole globe saw that.
Yes. Jeffrey, did you want to add to that regarding security threats? Or
People's panties. I've been going commando since I've been 10, so I don't know. I have no real stake in that. I have no horse in that race.
Okay, okay.
But maybe the national security portion of the panty conversation, they're saying it's a national security threat to not release the information. My assumption is that that's BS. Is there a context in which it could be true?
That's not. Is that a real thing? I was so deep in that report. That's why. I mean, there really was a panty. That can't be real. That's real.
Yeah.
So the picture of him in his undies in Epstein's hotel room speaking to a woman in a robe is part of it. But what Starmer is saying is like he can't reveal what the gentleman did or like publicly, they're not going to give any information out because it's a national security threat.
So there might be things that are national security threats. He didn't. He cited the color of the guy's panties as the reason. He did.
No.
That's what. Okay,
He
because I
when
was
he
like,
no no
otherwise
no.
I'm just gonna go
Was
start drinking. All right, because I'm just like I'm done. I don't know how to
they're
fix
white.
this.
All saw. That is not the question. It was just that, when Parliament was saying like you need to release this information, you have looked into him. First you claim you didn't, that there was no flags, and then you claim you did see them, but that he explained them away to you and everything was fine. Like, give us what you looked into and what you know. Show us what you were dealing with when you made the decision that this was fine until now that it came out. And he said he can't because it's all national security threat.
So I can speak to that. Thank God it isn't about panties. So it's true that some of the things there could have national security issues. That's one of the things I kind of sent up the chain when you had that disconnect between, and they're both good people. I love them both, Pam Bondi and Don Bongino. They had different ideas. They came on different sides of the coin regarding releasing all the Epstein files, right? Pam Bondi was very much like, look, we have to do this the right way because there's still some investigations going on, and we don't want to sit there and undermine those investigations. So victims can see, justice. Plus, there's some national security issues because there's very powerful people in countries that are part of our alliance that our adversaries might use to fracture said alliance in preparation of a high intensity world war and all of that. All valid points. Don Bongino's point is people have very little confidence in many, tragically for good reason, in our institutions and agencies, right? We need to release these to start to leverage transparency, rebuild that confidence because we're going to need it. And so the question is, how do you square that circle? So that's a real circle to square. That being said, from the preliminary stuff that I've looked at, from what you're talking about, it seems like some of the people in positions of responsibility they misperceive or as one of privilege or power are going to use that kind of friction as a means to kind of national security wash, releasing things that are embarrassing to them and have no impact on national security. That doesn't mean that conversation shouldn't be had, though. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. So basically, Keir Starmer's a liar. That's what we have found out. Okay, next is Michael.
Alrighty. Wait, can anyone hear me or not?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, like, basically, Right now, what's happening is Donald Trump is negotiating with terrorists, the Iranians, right? And so basically, my question is, when the hell is he going to attack Iran? It's already been waiting for too long. I heard he's going to have convo with, or they're going to have a meeting about something, blah, blah, blah. But like, my question is, when the hell are they going to strike Iran? They've already killed 40,000 people. Like, that's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
so from a US perspective, the okay, I'm gonna say this and it's gonna sound
Mm.
bad, okay, but I'm gonna just deal with objective reality. Right? I'm gonna be descriptive, okay? This is not normative, this is descriptive, okay? From an American perspective, the 40,000 people killed allows them to do something that is in the benefit of America, right? But
Mhm.
the point is
Yeah.
that it has to make sense for American interest, right? This is not for the sake of Iranian people, okay? The fact that they did this to the Iranian people gives them international legitimacy to go do something, but it's not about saving the Iranian people. When American taxpayer money is being used to this degree to do something, it has to make sense for the American taxpayer. It has to be somehow in their benefit, right? Also, it has to, the cost, not only you have to demonstrate the benefit, you also have to minimize the cost, especially more than money, the lives of American soldiers, right? And remember this, the calculation, let's look at three countries: Iran, Israel, and United States. For Iran, this is a matter of survival, right? For Israel,
Yeah.
this is a matter of survival. For United States, this is not a matter of survival. America is going to be fine. For America, this is a matter of more dominance over the world, more control over, more available ability to keep internet,
Available assets.
no, hold on, trade routes stable, right? More able to basically control lower energy prices and basically control inflation inside the United States. Most importantly, United States being able to position itself better when it comes to competing against China in the upcoming Cold War, right? These are the things that matter to United States, right? But remember, America might have a strong military that could do godlike things with it. However, it's limited when it comes to political capital because it's a democracy, right? So even if America can do many things when it comes to military capital, it's limited with political capital because the American people have to approve to a certain degree before they could actually do something. Like they can't just go use their military for anything they want, right? And you would lose American support fast if American soldiers die. Again, the calculation is different for Israeli soldiers because Israeli citizens are more understanding if Israeli soldiers die because Israeli soldiers are fighting for the survival of their country. So Israelis have a higher understanding that sometimes we lose soldiers because they're fighting for the lives of everybody else in their country. American citizens don't think that if Israel loses wars, this brings the possibility of more Israelis dying inside Israel. That's why Israelis usually approve of their government going into wars because they understand what's at stake. American citizens don't feel like that. The American citizens don't feel like if we lose the war with the Islamic Republic, nothing's going to happen to them, right? Like if they lose, if they fuck up in Afghanistan, they're just going to lose a lot of money. Nothing is going to happen to them in like they don't feel like something is going to happen to them in like LA, right? I mean 9/11 happened, but that was like it doesn't happen, it's not to the same extent that you could your lives is at risk in Iran or like mostly in Iran, then in Israel, but Americans feel safer. There's an ocean between you and them, and America is pretty secure. relative to other places, right? So one thing is that America needs to make sure, given that the ability for Americans to accept soldiers dying is very, very low. If you're going to go to a war that is with the intention of regime change, then you need to make sure that you bring everything possible there to make sure that the cost to America is at the minimum, especially when it comes to lives of soldiers, right? That's one thing. But also, America doesn't want to accept any harm to its allies in the region, especially because they're very influential in Washington, D.C., right? So, America should highest priority, lowest loss in American lives. Second highest priority, no lasting war. So this shouldn't be something that America gets dragged into. That is going to take a long time, and they're going to stuck in that. If they get involved, they want to make sure that it's very effective and done with it as quickly as possible. Another priority for America is that, okay, we need to protect ourselves, but we also need to protect our allies. We need to protect Israel. We need to protect Saudi Arabia. We need to protect Qatar. We need to support the UAE. We need to support Bahrain. We need to support Jordan. And we need to support them to the point where not a single ballistic missile of the Islamic Republic lands inside Dubai, for example. If one of them, like that, is devastating for the UAE. So imagine if a Islamic Republic ballistic missiles lands in Dubai, even if nobody dies, that is capital running out of UAE like so fast, because the whole idea of these countries being a center of commerce and investment is because the understanding is that war doesn't enter in these regions. War enters Lebanon, wars enter Syria. You have war in these regions, war enters Yemen, Somalia, Sudan, but not in the UAE. That's why they're so rich, because all that oil and gas money goes into areas where there's no chaos, right? So Saudi Arabia's is that we don't have that kind of bullshit that these other, Lebanon and Syria and Yemen has, right? This place is stable. That's why they're so rich, because it's not just the oil and gas. I mean, the Islamic Republic has a lot of oil and gas. They're not that rich. Saudi Arabia has oil and gas, but it also has stability. So it's not just oil and or having oil and gas is not enough for you to become like a rich Arab country. You also need
That's
to
true.
demonstrate stability. Yeah, you also need to demonstrate stability. That's why they're very, very sensitive regarding any chaos entering into their territory. And because they're US allies, they lobby Washington to as and they have influence, that they want to make sure that if it were so this for a country, for example, like Saudi Arabia, there are three options and they hate option two. Option number one is no war at all. Option number two is attacking the Islamic Republic and not toppling the regime. This is the option that they hate. Option number three is attacking the Islamic Republic and toppling the regime. They're okay with this one. This is actually the preferred option, but they're not at all sure that this is going to be the option if the United States attacks. And that's why they're terrified the United States is going to attack the Islamic Republic, and they're going to basically wound this beast, and then the United States is going to leave the area, and now they're left alone with this wounded crazy beast, and they're going to be paying the price for them going even crazier than they used to be. So they don't want that. They want to make sure the United States doesn't attack the Islamic Republic, or if they do attack, to finish the job. And again, the Saudis have a lot of influence in Washington D.C. They do, and the Qataris do as well. United States has to take all of this into account. It needs to take into account the American voters, American taxpayers, all of these lobby groups, all of the different interest groups, and most importantly, protecting its soldiers. And oh, one other element that you have to take into account why things might take longer than people want is because this is a huge opportunity for United States. There's 20 years of weapon development that hasn't been tested. And America wants to bring, if the war is going to happen, America wants to bring all of its toys to the playground. Every single one of its toys that it has made and worked on for the past 20 years, it wants to basically, like, if we're going to go to war, let's make sure we play with everything that we have, because none of this has been tested. One thing that people don't understand is that when it comes to military weapons, nothing will give you information regarding how capable your weapons are more than actually using them in a real war. So you could do as many tests as you want. You're never going to know how capable your weapons are unless you actually use them in war. America hasn't had like a real war for the past 20 years, ever since the fall of Saddam. And they have a lot of new toys, and a lot of these weapon manufacturing people can just wait to basically demonstrate how capable these are, and this is the opportunity. Another thing that might be taking time is to prepare to bring everything that they have for testing. They're going to use things that they don't even need just to see how they work.
Makes sense. And one
Yeah.
last thing I want to add also, it's unfortunate that these people have power in the US, like many of these Arab countries, because a lot of them are funding genocide, like the UAE and Saudi Arabia. They're basically killing their own people, like in Yemen. But nobody wants to talk about that. And yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate, but you can't expect it to be any way else, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at it from an American perspective, I need to do things that are in the best interest of my citizens, right? So they might have a poor human rights record, but if they're going to come invest in my country, for example, and these investments is going to create job and commerce for my country, like, yeah, I mean, sorry for the people of their country, but me as a government, I have been elected to improve the lives of my citizens, right? No,
One advantage.
I'm not saying human rights of other countries are irrelevant. But it's not that direct. The relevance is that if my citizens have a positive view of you, then it's going to be easier for us to get along because I'm serving my citizens. So if my citizens hate you, then it's going to be difficult for me to cooperate with you. So your poor human rights record has an indirect effect on whether we could work with each other, but it's not that direct. But go on.
One thing that Israel has an advantage over all these Arab countries is that it has developed its indigenous military weapons technology, something that many of these Arab countries have not developed. So, Israel has a
And
hand here. Like, uh,
they can't. They don't know how to. They always rely.
but they
All
have
they
the
know is
money.
yeah, but that's the problem because their
Yeah.
solution to everything is just throw money at things, right? This is basically it's very similar to a spoiled kid that doesn't know how to do things because their parents just threw money at them every time they had a problem. So a lot of these rich Arab countries, they don't know how to basically develop their own skills and talents and basically do these things because they just had so much oil money that every time they just needed something to fix something, they just hired foreigners to do it for them because they just could afford it. So they didn't develop any of their own local skills.